say all kind of things about you.
We them are just shake up.
With the extraordinary challenge we face as a nation, we find ourselves in a predicament, a situation that finds us adjusting to a new world order, staying at home to protect ourselves and the ones we love, ultimately meaning that we have empty streets, many closed doors, and limited movement. Yet, it's in times like these that the Kenyan spirit of resilience, unity, and resolve has in the past come to life and emboldened us as a people. Even now, amid the uncertainty and gloom, there is hope. Hope that together we will overcome this challenge and rise again as a nation. And when we do, the magic of Kenya will be here to take us on a thrilling adventure. We will once again do what we love, take to our sunny beaches to revitalize, and we will once again go back to having unforgettable safaris. Without a doubt, we will be back to creating memories together over good food and company, hanging out with friends as we cheer on our favorite teams, and taking a break from the everyday hustle at the park or even with just a good night out. Together, we will overcome this moment, and we will be back to doing all the things we love doing most. Magical Kenya. The magic awaits.
Yeyote aliye na kinga hafifu mwilini yuko katika hatari ya kuambukizwa COVID-19. Hao ni kama watu ambao wanaishi na magonjwa kama vile virusi vya HIV, kansa, TB, kisukari, miongoni mwa magonjwa mengine. Lazima wazingatie matibabu ili kuboresha kinga mwilini. Lazima wahakikishe wamepata dawa ipasavyo. Tembelea kliniki yako au kituo cha afya kilicho karibu nawe kwa maelezo kamili kuhusu jinsi ya kupata dawa. Pia wasaidie jamaa na rafiki kupata dawa. Dumisha mawasiliano nao na ufuate mwongozo wa kiafya kutoka kwa kituo cha afya ili kujikinga na virusi vya korona. Pata habari kuhusu COVID-19 kupitia vyanzo vinavyoaminika. Piga 719 au bonyeza *719#. COVID-19 inazuilika. Jilinde, linda familia na jamii. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na serikali ya Kenya.
It's Sunday, the 17th of May, 2020. Good evening, wherever it is that you are watching us from, our viewers here in Kenya and around the world. Welcome to the most comprehensive bulletin this night. As usual, Family Matters continues, and we will be focusing on the frontline healthcare workers. The World Health Organization has emphasized on the need to protect them, provide them with the equipment that they may require even as they be at the front line during this fight of COVID-19. Are they satisfied? What are some of the challenges that they are going through? New lessons to take home even as they struggle with this new and invisible enemy. We will be talking with the officials, the Secretary General for the Kenya National Union of Nurses, Seth Panyako, and the Secretary General for the KUKO, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, George Gibore, are in the house. They will be joining us with that conversation, talk to us, and tell us whether the country is doing enough for these frontline health workers, the heroes. Indeed, they are at Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News. But before that, let's get the latest in the COVID-19 update in the country. In the last 24 hours, 2,198 samples were collected and tested, and from those samples, 57, the highest number ever recorded in the country since the first case tested positive. And we also had 12 recoveries. And good news, in the last 24 hours, no death was reported. Therefore, we have a total of 50 deaths thus far. Recoveries, 313 is the number, and confirmed cases topped 887. Total samples collected since the first case, once again, 43,712, and that's the country's status of COVID-19. As usual, we'll be also having a look at the global perspective of COVID-19 thus far. And as we speak, we had about 4.7, yes, 4.7, pardon me for that, 4.7 million cases of COVID-19 recorded globally thus far, and 313 deaths have been reported. Over 1.8 million people have recovered from COVID-19. And as usual, when you have a look at the countries that are topping in this global map, we have US that is taking the lead as far as COVID-19 is concerned. This is the graph, how the graph looks like from the first to where we are right now on COVID-19, trying to get those numbers for us. All right, globally, the US is leading in the number of cases of COVID-19 at 1.5 million cases of COVID-19, and they have a total of 90,000 deaths, followed by Russia. And remember, Russia, yesterday it was Spain, but today we are seeing that Russia was able to overtake Spain as far as COVID-19 cases are concerned. UK, Brazil, and then China now going a bit lower. Yesterday, China was taking position 12, but today you are seeing that it's moved lower to position 13 globally. And of course, when you have a look at Africa, we have South Africa and Egypt. And Egypt, Algeria, Morocco that are leading with the cases of COVID-19. And still there is no vaccine for this virus. But the global call by governments and, of course, officials is to have these people take the preventive measures that have been laid. And we are talking about sanitizing your hands, washing your hands regularly, as well as putting on that mask. We will be unpacking all that discussion on our show tonight. But just before that, here are the highlights. The trend is worrying and the numbers keep going up as 57 new coronavirus cases are confirmed in the country.
We have exercised that is the executive order to the latter.
Tightening the nose at the borders, 15 Tanzanians arrested and a number of motorbikes intercepted in Isebania border trying to cross to Kenya. And scale up the efforts, preachers in the country call for increased targeted mass testing to enable the nation resume to normalcy. Delighted to have your company. My name is Purity Museo and Byron Abuli is our sign language interpreter tonight. Let's get started. Kenya recorded its highest number of coronavirus infection in the last 24 hours after 57 new cases were reported. A statement from the Minister of Health indicates that 37 cases were reported in Mombasa. Nairobi had 17 cases, Kajiado 3, while Kwale and Kitui 1 case each. 12 truck drivers from Tanzania who tested positive were denied entry into the country at Lunga Lunga and Taveta borders.
We have unfortunately witnessed an increased number of imported cases.
A day after President Uhuru Kenyatta directed the closure of Kenya borders with Tanzania, save for truck drivers on condition that they undergo a COVID-19 test and must test negative, 12 Tanzanian truck drivers have been denied entry into the country after testing positive for the virus. 11 were turned back at the Lunga Lunga border, while 1 at the Taveta border. At the same time, 57 Kenyans tested positive for COVID-19 from 2,198 samples tested in the last 24 hours, with 12 recoveries. This now brings the total number of recoveries to 313, and no death was reported during this period. Among the 57, 35 are from Mombasa County, Nairobi recording 17 cases, Kajiado 3, Kwale and Kitui 1 case each. In Mombasa, Mvita recorded 22 cases, Likoni 4, Changamwe and Nyali 3 cases each, Kisauni had 2 cases and Jomvu 1. In Nairobi, 9 cases were from Kibra, a quarantine center 2, Isli 2, Aga Khan Hospital, Kamulu, Dandora and Parklands 1 case each. Kwale has 1 case in Msambweni, Kitui with a case in Mwingi Town, while the 3 cases in Kajiado are from Kajiado Central and North. And locals in Thindigwa, Kembu County, are worried of contracting the coronavirus. They claim those who had been quarantined after 1 person tested positive are now moving freely, and they fear that they might spread the virus.
Tunasikiaga fununu kuna askari wanakujanga, lakini ile wakati nimepita hapa hakuna askari naonanga.
In the meantime, as the globe marks the World Hypertension Day, Kenyans have been urged to undergo hypertension screening, as the condition has been listed as one of the predisposing factors for COVID-19. While security has been beefed up along Kenya-Somalia border a day after the government closed its borders to fight the coronavirus pandemic, residents in Mandera County, however, say they are already feeling the effects of the closure, as the supply of basic commodities has dealt a big blow. The move to close the border with the war-torn Somalia is to limit importation of the coronavirus cases.
Heavy deployment of security forces along the Kenya-Somalia border is not a new phenomenon. However, since Saturday night, security forces here have been operating under strict orders, among them not allowing any form of movement in and out of the country.
We have exercised that is the executive order to the latter.
The tightened security is in response to the recent spike in imported coronavirus cases in Kenya. This group of people has been blocked from crossing the border from Bulahawa, Somalia into Kenya.
Sisi kama wakazi ya Mandera tumeumia kabisa, sababu mpaka imefungwa Somalia, mpaka Kenya na Somalia imefungwa. Hakuna chakula tunapata kutoka Somalia na imefungwa, zingine tunapata kutoka Ethiopia imefungwa. Sasa tunakaa kama landlord hivi, landlord tunakaa.
Residents here say it is not just COVID-19 they are worried about, but also how to survive hunger.
Border ifunguliwe. So unaona? Mahali chakula inaingia ni border. Kama border hawezi ingia chakula, wapi tunapata chakula? Nairobi ilifungwa. Hakuna gari inaingia, hakuna kutoka. No in and out, Mandera.
Somalia has already reported more than 1,000 coronavirus cases, and the Kenyan government wants to ensure that such cases do not find footing in the northeastern counties. But the closure of the borders has not gone down well with miraa farmers in Meru.
Na kutoka Mogadishu wake ile lockdown, wakasema hakuna miraa kwenda Mogadishu. Si miraa yetu kwa masamba iko haipati wa kutunda. Maana ile soko yetu kubwa ilikuwa ndio Mogadishu na kutoka Papunge.
Tulikuwa tunabaki na soko moja tu ya kuuza miraa 20. Naye rais alituwekea lockdown, akasema hakuna biashara lolote kule. Ile mtu alikuwa anauza kwa duka yake apate pesa anunue miraa yangu, hakuna kutoka kwa nyumba.
The farmers claim their livelihoods have been dealt a big blow, as they have no other means of survival. In Isibania, police manning porous borders with Tanzania have arrested 15 Tanzanian nationals and intercepted 35 motorcycles that were being used to smuggle people to the country to try and beat the border closure.
Kwa upande wa mpaka wa Sirari tunaona kwamba serikali imechukua juhudi kamili kabisa kuthibitisha Wakenya wakae kwetu na Watanzania wasivuke kwetu. Ila sasa tunaonelea kama upande wa pili Watanzania hasa njia za chocho ndizo wanaingilia sana. Ila tunashukuru sasa hivi serikali kwa sababu imechukua mkondo tahadhari kabisa kuzuia kudhibiti Watanzania kutovuka Kenya.
For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
And a group of health professionals have called off a nationwide strike slated for Monday. The professionals said they have taken the move following a consultative meeting with the government on how to address the concerns the health workers had threatened to down tools on Monday, citing lack of allowances and medical equipment for those in the front line fighting the coronavirus pandemic.
Health services will not be disrupted nationally Monday.
We had a meeting on Friday with the Ministry of Health officials, and we had lengthy discussions on all the issues affecting health sector, even including those that are not in the strike notice.
The Kenya National of Clinical Officers, the Kenya National of Nurses Union, Kenya Health Professional Society, and the Kenya Laboratories Technologies have suspended their strike that was to commence Monday for the next 21 days.
We drew a framework on how we are going to work together with the Ministry of Health and ensure that all those issues are resolved, especially those we call in health sector as historical injustices.
Kwa sasa tunataka kuwapa hiyo muda waweze kutekeleza yale ambao wameomba.
The health professionals had raised concerns over lack of funds meant for frontline workers and lack of consideration in the issuance of personal protective equipment in the war against the virus. They also complain of laxity by the national government to conduct mass testing on health workers, exposing their families and the community around them to the dangers of the virus. The health workers want contractual employees to be employed on a permanent basis to create stability in the health sector.
The ministry promised us that by close of business next week, or this week, it will have promoted all health workers who are in the national government, both in blood bank, spinal injury, port health, and other institutions, Madare, that are within the national government.
Iwapo kama kutakuwa na taswishi ama mvutano, hiyo bado ni kitu ambayo inaweza lete utata.
The Ministry of Labour had on Friday written to the concerned bodies to shelve their intended industrial action owing to the critical role they are currently playing to fight the coronavirus, as consultations on their concerns are being addressed. Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1.
So tell us what's your opinion on the country's response on COVID-19 this far. And tonight on the show, we'll be talking about the frontline healthcare workers. In studio tonight is the Secretary General for the Kenya National Union of Nurses, Seth Panyako, and the Secretary General for the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers at Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News at Brian Osapir 254, tuned in from Busia County. Thank you for tuning in. Tell us your opinion on the country's response of COVID-19 this far. The first case was reported on the 13th of March. Charles Odemba, you also tuned in. Keep your views coming. We also live on Facebook and YouTube. Religious leaders are calling on the Ministry of Health to scale up targeted COVID-19 mass testing across all the 47 counties. Anglican Church of Kenya Archbishop Jackson Ole Sapit, while welcoming the move by the government to withdraw isolation and quarantine costs, said focus should shift to all religions. His sentiments coming even as a section of clergymen plead with the government to ease movement and public gatherings restrictions and reopen churches.
It is the 8th Sunday since the government banned public and social gatherings. In what is now becoming the new normal, religious leaders shared the message of hope and resilience through digital platforms.
Wakati mwingine katika mateso yetu ni kumwelekea Kristo.
At Holy Family Minor Basilica in Nairobi, Bishop Joseph Obanyi Sagwe of Catholic Diocese of Kakamega called on Kenyans to exercise tolerance and generosity towards each other during the economic hardship period brought about by the pandemic.
ni ule uhusiano tulio nao na wenzetu, vile tunavyotendeana sisi wenyewe, vile tunavyopokeana na kuhudumiana katika maisha yetu ya kila siku.
The same message was relayed by Anglican Church of Kenya Archbishop Jackson Ole Sapit in his sermon at the All Saints Cathedral. Amid calls for Kenyans to remain steadfast in the fight against COVID-19, Ole Sapit urged the government to conduct targeted mass testing across the 47 counties.
The ministry should scale up mass testing for COVID-19. Some counties that had 0 cases are recording great surprises, and we must not take this trend for granted.
He also called on the government to waive all taxes on imported personal protective equipment kits to make them more accessible.
The importation of surgical masks by mission for essential drugs and supplies is being subjected to 25% customs duty and 14% VAT, making the essential protection mask very expensive. The government must waive all taxes on PPEs to make them more accessible.
At the same time, a section of the clergy in Githurai, Kiambu County, are pleading with the government to reopen churches, saying they have put measures in place to prevent spread of the coronavirus.
Washirika wengi wanashindwa kufuatilia mchungaji wao mahali popote alipo kwa sababu hawana uwezo hata labda ya kununua hiyo bundles ya kumfuatilia mchungaji. Na pia labda ni hizo tu makanisa za mjini, na je, makanisa zile ziko mashambani wataweza kufanywa nini?
But when the church is together, we will be in a position also to help the government to bring the families together and also to pray for whatever is happening.
The cleric services will also be shortened and fewer congregants accommodated. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
On the global COVID-19 update, confirmed COVID-19 cases have exceeded 4.6 million globally, with over 311,000 fatalities and more than 1.67 million recoveries. According to the latest count by Johns Hopkins University, the U.S. is leading the world in both COVID-19 infections and deaths, totaling more than 1.46 million and over 88,000 respectively.
The number of deaths in the U.S. is projected to exceed 100,000 by June 1st, according to U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention Director Robert Redfield. Russian COVID-19 cases surpassed 272,000, the second highest number of coronavirus infections in the world after the United States. The Chinese mainland has 82,947 COVID-19 cases, of which 1,700 were imported. Also, 515 asymptomatic patients are under medical observation. Chinese COVID-19 death toll stands at 4,645. Meanwhile, Spain saw its daily COVID-19 deaths drop to below 100 for the first time in 2 months. According to data released by the Health Ministry, Spain registered 87 more deaths, bringing the total number of COVID-19 fatalities to 27,650. That is the lowest number of daily deaths in Spain since mid-March. Another 421 infections were also confirmed, raising the tally in Spain to 231,350. Spain's strict lockdown began on March 4th and is being lifted asymmetrically across the country. Globally, the number of new confirmed COVID-19 cases rose by 93,543. The number of daily infections has remained above 90,000 for 3 days running. A further 4,281 people died of the disease caused by coronavirus. This is the lowest daily rise for 5 days, pushing the total death toll to 305,833. Well, Qatar began enforcing the world's toughest penalties of up to 3 years imprisonment for failing to wear masks in public as it battles one of the world's highest coronavirus infection rates. Regionally, Tanzania President John Pombe Magufuli has revealed that one of his 2 children who had contracted the novel coronavirus is now healthy and doing push-ups. The president, who has drawn criticism for being dismissive about the coronavirus outbreak and even ordered a 3-day prayer period, has also hinted at reopening schools and allowing tourists back.
Sisi kama taifa kuruhusu michezo iendelee kwa sababu michezo ni sehemu moja ya burudani kwa Watanzania.
Burundi is pushing ahead with an election on Wednesday that will end President Pierre Nkurunziza's 15-year rule, but the coronavirus poses a threat to the May 20th vote, and the government has kicked out World Health Organization workers after concerns were raised. Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
Back home, the Minister of Health is working with the Kenya Prison Service to cushion correctional facilities across the country from the threat of the novel coronavirus, which causes COVID-19 disease. This includes the distribution of toiletries such as soap to prisons nationwide.
In the process of trying to maintain social distance, we asked families of the prison or of the inmates not to visit them this time around of corona, so that we don't cut out their communication or engagement with their families. We have had partners, and specifically Kenya Red Cross, that has provided airtime to facilitate communication between the inmate and their families, so that they continue communicating without their families having to visit them, so that they do not expose themselves to the risk of carrying COVID-19 from outside in the prison or vice versa.
Stephen Musimi, you're watching Channel 1 Weekend. Opio Polycarp, you're saying nurses suspending their planned strike amidst this pandemic is a form of gratitude. The government should not buy time to meet their grievances. And then Ben Mark, watching at Kathiani Machakos. Wycliffe, tuned in from Migori, waiting for the discussion. And then that's Wycliffe from Migori County. And then Abdi Ishak, you're saying the country is in between a stone and a hard rock. Kenyans are starving from this COVID-19. So Panyako and Gibor should face and come a pro of these health workers, right? And of course, Junior Boy, always great watching Channel 1 Weekend. Harrington Jenga from Emahondo, Kakamega County, you also tuned in tonight. Remember, we are asking you what's your opinion on the country's response on this pandemic thus far, the first case having been recorded on the 13th of March. Are you satisfied? What are some of the loopholes? And tonight we are speaking with the healthcare professionals representing Nurses Union and the clinical officers to just tell us some of the challenges they are facing and how the experience has been like, where is the gap, and how those issues could be addressed. Let's now take our first commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We still have plenty more to come, including that discussion.
On Channel 1. Yeyote aliye na kinga hafifu mwilini yuko katika hatari ya kuambukizwa COVID-19.
All the boxers signed it means you'll be back someday.
Hip hip!
Hooray!
Hip hip!
Hooray!
Return it. Tell your brother to get his act together. Give me a product I can sell.
That's not fair. There's nothing wrong with the carving.
Pata habari kuhusu COVID-19 kupitia vyanzo vinavyoaminika. Piga 719 au bonyeza *719# on the next episode of Corner.
What? Back in the days, guys didn't know you two were siblings.
We've been seeing you around the gym a lot lately.
Wanjala needs the support of his wife. I'm just trying to be there for him.
Oh damn, hata hizi discuss na mimi hiyo story. Labda kwa nakubonga naye kwa sababu anajua utatry kumconvince maintain no ubaya gani hapo.
I was hoping Julia would bet on Wanjala instead of Koros.
Look, we all know where this conversation is going.
You're watching Channel 1 Weekend. Thank you for staying with us. A man working on a section of a damaged railway line in Kijabe was buried alive by mudslide while 8 others escaped with serious injuries. The casual laborers were working on Saturday night when the incident occurred following heavy rains in the area. This as weatherman predicts heavy rainfall in most parts of the country from Sunday night to Monday night.
The torrential rains and subsequent floods experienced in most parts of the country does not only leave people devastated, but also lives lost and property worth millions of shillings destroyed. In Kijabe, Kiambu County, a man was killed by a landslide as he worked on a section of a damaged railway line, while 8 others escaped with serious injuries Saturday night. Following the incident, the repair of the railway line was suspended as residents and area leaders pointed an accusing finger at the contractor involved in the works.
Kaambiwa ati brother yangu walikuwa wanafanya kazi kwa reli na wamepelekwa na maji. Sasa nikafika hapa asubuhi na mapema kwa sababu nilisikia hapatikani. Sasa nikakuja hapa na nikakuta kweli ni kweli yameaga.
Tena pahali walikuwa tuko na shida. Injinia mwenyewe hakuwa ameangalia pahali walikuwa wanafanyia kazi. Upande ya chini na maji mebroku juu. Hakuona kuna hatari.
The workers, according to eyewitnesses, were inside a tunnel which collapsed, trapping them under before help came from members of the public.
Karafati yenyewe ikaplug, maji ikasimama. Ikasimama kama siku 3. Wakati ilikatika, iliona pahali ya kutokea, ilitokea overflow ya karavati. Sasa ikasukuma leri.
Last week, a section of the line which is on the border of Nakuru and Kiambu was swept away by floods, cutting off operations between the Nairobi-Nakuru route. In Muranga's Gatanga constituency, over 20 families at Kiunyu village have been displaced after floods ravaged their homes and farms. The families are now relying on well-wishers for food and shelter. Their once productive land has now been turned into small ponds. Graves have also been covered with water, and worse still, their pit latrines have become a no-go zone.
Hii maji imeleta hasara sana kwa sababu babangu amezikwa tu hapa. Kaburi yake tu imeshabebwa na maji. Tumeteseka sana hadi nyumba zimeanza kubomoka. Watu wamehangaika. Hizi ni shamba za watu zimeishia huku. Huku kulikuwa kumejaa chakula huku.
As you can see from behind, this is not a dam. This is a flood which has affected about 20 families. And so I was requested by the area MCA to come and assist, and that's why I'm here. At the same time, as you know, there is this problem of the COVID. So the families here have nothing to eat. There is the epidemic. There's the epidemic already, and therefore I was touched in my heart to come over and help them out.
In Busia, the perennial flood menace in Budalangi has prompted leaders in the area to push for revival of dams construction, such as along the Upper Nzoia River that stalled years back.
Ndio kuna matatizo ya pili ya maji ambayo inatoka Lake Victoria. Na hiyo ni mambo ya hydro engineer. Kuna inji nyingi sana ambazo zimefaulu kuzuia maji isije ikatoka kwenye ziwa ingie kwenye nafasi ambazo watu wamejenga, kwa mfano kama za dikes na rivers zenyewe.
Nambale Member of Parliament Sakwa Bunyasi says the dikes will help prevent the persistent backflow of water from Lake Victoria to neighboring communities. And according to the Meteorological Department, most parts of the country will experience a rainfall starting from 9 p.m. Sunday through Monday. Kamchemenza for Channel 1 News.
Elsewhere, as the world marks the International Donkeys Day without much pomp and color due to the COVID-19 pandemic, experts now want the animal treated with dignity and the females exempted from hard work. This, according to donkey fanatics, will give rise to a new generation that is now threatened with extinction as their numbers continue to dwindle. This has been the call on this year's edition, whose theme is Donkey's Power for Resilience.
They have been christened the beast of burden for their ability to handle hard labor and withstand the harshest of environments. This is the donkey, a well-known and valued animal in some communities. And as the world celebrates the International Donkey Day without fuss and fanfare, the animals' welfare organizations in Kenya have raised concerns over the decreasing population of donkeys in the country. The decline in numbers has been attributed to theft and illegal slaughtering of the animal for export that has led to a ban in donkey slaughtering in the country by the government. Officers from KENDAT, an organization that deals with donkey rights, on Sunday visited farms to monitor progress and health of the animals. In Nairobi County, the officers visited about 30 farmers in Ruai, Kamulu and Joska areas, where farmers have over 10,000 donkeys for routine checkup.
Ikiwa tunaweza kuwa na shamba moja ama waweke farm moja na tuweze kuweka punda kama 1,000 kwa bahati mzuri isipate kama 100 ama 200 kwa mwaka. Mimi kuna mahali tutakuwa tukitegemea. Kwa sasa hii hakuna tegemeo mahali tunaweza sema. Ingeendelea na ile kichinjio vile ilikuwa ikiendelea. By 2022 hatungekuwa na mnyama punda tena, tungekuwa tu tukimuona kwa picha.
Nairobi chairman of donkey owners Stephen Muthamia said artificial insemination and other breeding methods and donkey husbandry need to be introduced in donkey farming so as to accelerate the reproduction.
Tunaomba serikali pia iangalie vile wanaangalia AI zingine, vile ng'ombe zinasalishwa ama wanaangalia kuku ama waangalia busi, pia punda weka kwa ile onda. Pia tumuangalie.
Hatujaweza kutoka na AI ya punda ambayo inaweza saidia hizi punda zisaane sana. Kwa hivyo tunawafunza pale mashinani kuweka punda wetu vizuri, kuwaweka sana sana wale wa kike wasifanye kazi sana ndio waweze kuzaana na waweze kuongeza idadi ya punda sana sana.
They claim the rate at which the country was losing the rare animal was devastating, and if not checked it may become extinct by the year 2022. Kenya has about 1.2 million donkeys compared to 1.8 million a decade ago, with the reduction attributed to the demand of donkey meat in some countries, including China. For Channel 1 News, I'm Ben Troenjwe.
Thank you, Ben, for that report on donkey protection during this day that the world is celebrating, the World Donkeys Day. Of course, a call to treat the donkeys with dignity and especially exempt the females from hard labor. ARABUKO SOKOKE Forest, East Africa's largest ecological conservation area, is now under threat of environmental degradation following the collapse of the multi-million butterfly export business in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The forest, which has been used by the community as a source of livelihood through butterfly farming, is now facing destruction as local source for firewood, poles and timber, threatening the survival of the forest.
ARABUKO SOKOKE Forest is synonymous with butterfly farming that more than 50,000 community members around the forest have been relying on. Butterflies harvested found a growing market in the United Kingdom and the United States of America. But the story is different now. The multi-million butterfly export business was suspended in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. A visit into the forest now reveals some degree of destruction as residents resort to logging to make firewood, poles and timber for sale.
Wataingia maana watakula nini? Itabidi apate msitu, akipata kaoda mahali ni makaa ni mti wa kujengea, itabidi waingie kwa msitu wakate hiyo miti.
Gonja tulikuwa tumejitayarisha kwa ukulima wa kipepeo kwa hali ambayo ilikuwa ni nzuri sana, tukitarajia kuwa msimu utakuwa mzuri. Lakini kwa sababu ya hali ya ugonjwa ikatulazimu tuache kupeleka vipepeo hapa Kipepeo Butterfly Farm.
Hussein Aden, a research scientist behind the butterfly farming dubbed the Kipepeo Project Gede, says the project had an annual return of around 18 million to 20 million shillings from butterfly sales.
So what prompted them to do that is that they don't have any source of income at the moment. They have exhausted whatever they have. The little they accumulated for the butterfly sales, the savings from last year, they have invested in preparation for the season of 2020.
Aden is now urging the government and private organizations to chip in and support the butterfly farmers who were once independent but have now no source of livelihoods.
So the farmers at the moment are very much affected in that they have lost livelihood. the main source of income was butterfly sales. Those average farmers that used to get around 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 shillings per week no longer now get anything.
About over 800 farmers who were directly involved in the butterfly breeding during the heydays could earn an average of 10,000 shillings to 20,000 shillings per week. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
And from across the counties, the government has rolled out training of police officers on how best to enforce the curfew and movement restriction in line with the safety guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health to control the spread of COVID-19. Over 1,700 police officers have so far been trained in the first phase of the program. Timothy Kipnusu reports.
During a training session for the officers in Laikipia County conducted in Nanyuki Town, Ngao Kenya Chief Executive Officer Tony Munene said that they are trying to sensitize the police officers to reduce the risk level while doing their job.
We want to try and do all 47 counties since we have over 2,000 members, but we have 105 trainer of trainers, TOTs.
Elsewhere, a 9-year-old girl was on Saturday evening electrocuted to death, while a 3-year-old boy is in critical condition at the Coast Provincial General Hospital. The two children from Bangladesh informal settlement in Mombasa were playing with others when they ran over an insulated low-hanging electric wire that had fallen in the area. The distraught father said he is saddened by the tragic death of his 9-year-old daughter and wants KPLC to compensate them.
Walikuwa wameenda kucheza huko, ile waya ilianguka ile ya kitambo. Kawaambia msai yuko wapi? Akawaniambia wamemkimbiza hospitali ako Mikindani Medical. Nikaenda moja kwa moja mpaka Mikindani. Kufika pale ni kuona daktari, ananiambia mtoto akifika alikuwa ashaaga tayari.
Meanwhile, 3 14-seater matatus have been set on fire in Kikuyu town under unclear circumstances. Police have launched investigations into the Sunday morning arson attack, with fingers pointing at what many locals believe is business rivalry, after matatus plying up-country routes began operating within the city following the lockdown. And the Media Council of Kenya has condemned the harassment and arrest of 3 journalists in Embu County who were covering demonstration in Makima Mbere South. Media Council of Kenya Chairman Maina Muiruri says cases of journalists being arrested and harassed by police while in their line of duty have become a worrying trend that is impeding execution of their core mandate, which is disseminating information.
Safety and security as they carry out this important function, mandated and protected by the Constitution of Kenya under Article 34. It is not a favor, it's a constitutional duty that the media is delivering.
In the meantime, Ijara Member of Parliament Sophia Abdi is urging the Ministry of Education to rethink its strategy on how to make up for the disruption of learning in the country. The lawmaker has faulted the recent remarks by Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha that the learners are undergoing online tuition, that the ministry has not considered postponing this year's national examinations. In another development, a 90-year-old woman was last night killed by hyena in Voi, Taita Taveta County. The animal, which is also said to have wounded another person in the area before it was killed by locals. The hyena is believed to have strayed from the Tsavo East National Park. In Migori County, Korea North Member of Parliament Matthias Robi is calling on the government to hasten food distribution to people placed in quarantine, citing a myriad of challenges they go through while in isolation.
Kama kweli kuna misaada, hao watu wako quarantine, walishwe, wapewe chakula. Kuna sehemu ambapo tunajua chakula kipo. Kama chakula kipo, badala watu, na hizi chakula nasikia kinapeanwa, mara kina magendo mengi humo, ni watu wengine hata wale matajiri ndio wanafaidi zaidi. Chakula kinakosa kufikia wale wana mahitaji.
And police officers manning the Malaba one-stop border have arrested 5 suspects in connection with the death of a clearing and forwarding agent. The body of Paul Etori was found lying in pool of blood 150 meters away from his home. The late Etori worked for Mars, a logistic and clearing company. Finally, residents of Miluluni village in Kitui County are celebrating a change in fortunes following commencement of recarpeting of a 10-kilometer road that links them to crucial public facilities. Mwingi West Member of Parliament Charles Gusia says the road will be constructed at a cost of 3 million shillings. Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Timothy Kipnusu.
So we'll quickly go through our sports news and then our discussion focus tonight being the frontline health workers. And of course, tonight we're asking you whether your opinion on the country's response on COVID-19 thus far. And of course, when we talk about response on COVID-19, then healthcare workers are the front line on this fight against the pandemic. Talk to us at Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News. Leaders Bayern Munich play Union Berlin in one of the two Bundesliga matches lined up Sunday. The Bundesliga is the only top European league that has resumed amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Euro equals distant goal celebrations and disinfected match balls were some of the surreal features that marked the return of football after 2 months break following the global outbreak of COVID-19.
Married now.
What they can to protect and of course help the patients of COVID-19. The World Health Organization has estimated that among 1 in every 10 people that are positive globally is a healthcare provider. So far, the government has reported that 34 health workers have tested positive for COVID-19. So tonight on the show, we just want to focus on the frontline health workers. What are some of the issues they are raising or encountering as they help nations deal with this pandemic? And to help us with that discussion, next to me, Seth Panyako, the Secretary General for the Kenya National Union of Nurses, and at the far end is George Gibore, who is the Secretary General for the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. Before we begin this conversation, there was a strike that was to begin tomorrow, Monday, 18, but we saw earlier today you had a briefing and called it off. Is it calling it off, extending the deadline? What was it all about, Seb?
Yeah, the right word is that we suspended, or rather we extended the deadline for the strike, and we added 21 days to the government because the main problem I've had with the government is that they have not been engaging us. But on Friday, we had a very productive meeting with the representative of the Ministry of Health, where we discussed our issues. Among those issues discussed are those that are not even in the strike notice, issues that are historical in nature, that other health workers feel like the Ministry of Health has really been not taking serious about their issues. They have been only taking care of one kata within 18 kata in the Ministry of Health. So we discussed all those issues, and we looked at the fact that the new director of health, director of human resource in the Ministry of Health is barely 2 weeks in the office. And the work that he showed us he has done within a period of 2 weeks was a commendable job. He already has gone through and has a list of all health workers who are supposed to be promoted in Nairobi, in national government, and he promised us before the end of this week on Friday, all those health workers will be promoted, and they will not be looking, it is something like an affirmative action. They will not be looking at when were you promoted. Everybody is going to get promotion. That's the way they did for the doctors. Again, on Friday, we received a letter from the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, where the CS was saying that, and inviting us for a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m., together with the CS for Health and Chair, Council of Governors, Honorable Wycliffe Ambeth of Paranya. Mm-hmm. And those steps, according to us, were the right steps taken by the government, even if it came late in the day. What we are looking for is any avenue, any opening that the government is going to engage us, is going to take our issue seriously, and we were going to embrace that, because when you look at the situation in the country today, we are faced with a lot of calamities. Right. We have floods that have killed about more than 200 people. In fact, if we were to talk about national emergency, it's not about COVID-19, it's about floods, because we have lost 200 people. COVID, I think we are talking of 30 or how many people. Then we have the issue of locusts, which are destroying food in the northern part of the country. And then we have, of course, we can see on the TV, there's also political problems in the ruling party. So we want to appreciate that the government has taken some steps which we think are viable. 21 days is not a long time. If they don't act, we will come, and will come forcefully.
All right. And Gibore, karibu sana to the show. You are also in that meeting of people complaining, of course, healthcare professionals complaining. These are the clinical officers. So when Panyako talks about some cadre or the government not involving or engaging some healthcare providers, who are these healthcare providers? Are we talking about nurses and clinical officers only, or do we have other healthcare professionals?
Thank you, Purity, for having me. I need to say that, as my brother has stated, we have given more time to the government to address our issues. And of course, one thing that is quite eminent is that the government has not disowned any of the issues we have raised. Indeed, I want to say, like what you have said currently, the government said only 35 have been infected. As a union, we have a responsibility to protect our members. We have been following it up. We have our data that now demonstrate of around 43 healthcare workers, which the government has still not updated. I think these issues are across the world. That like here in Kenya, we tend to forget about the healthcare workers, even during this time where every resources is supposed to be geared toward the healthcare workers. And I want to say that from here, we are, yes, representing two cadres, I think the nurses and the clinical officers. We have the medical laboratories, we have the pharmaceutical technologists, we have the nutritionists, we also have many others like the public health officers, we have including the cleaners, and even the mortuary attendants who are never even spoken, or rather even mentioned anywhere. Because by virtue of the work they do, including the hospital administration, because the environment we work under is the same and the facility we work are the same. So they are actually subject also to exposure similar to any other healthcare workers. However, when now you look at risk assessment, you might find that it varies from certain cadre to cadres. So these are what we call the frontline healthcare workers who the government has been giving actually a deaf ear. But we want to appreciate that, yes, we had a meeting as he has said, and of course the CS for Labor has written to us a letter appealing that we give them time. Something that we have been looking that we can have a platform where we can engage and address the issues that are of great concern to the healthcare workers. They have given us that time. And of course, extending time, or rather giving them 21 days to do that, it does not bury the issue that we have been raising. It is actually trying to tell them that indeed we are willing to resolve these issues without disrupting the services, where Kenyans are actually looking upon us to assist and ensure that we are able to tackle and cap the spread of the COVID-19.
All right, and we'll shortly be talking about those issues that you're raising even as we fight this pandemic. But as I was asking our viewers your opinion, it's now the third month since the first case of COVID-19 was reported in the country. Today we reported the highest number of COVID-19 cases, 57 of them, and now we are at 887. What's your opinion, Panyako, on the country's response to this virus so far?
I think the response of this country has not been what is expected of Kenya as a country in Africa. Because when you talk about Africa, you look at which our countries look like they're the powerhouses of Africa. You look at South Africa, you look at Kenya, Egypt, and maybe Nigeria. So Kenya should have been actually testing almost 5,000 people per day. We should also put in measures in place that we have to begin reopening our economy. But here we are testing 500 people, 300 people. You go to 1,000, 2,000. Here Tanzania has been doing 200 in a day. 2,000 in a day. South Africa has been doing 5,000. I don't know what Nigeria has been doing, but I think with the financial muscle that Kenya has, we should even be testing 10,000 people in a day. You see, the money that is being mobilized and put together is huge chunks of money, billions of shillings. But when you try to look how this money is being used, you see that there's actually lack of prioritization of what's supposed to happen. I thought testing of Kenyans, not only those people are suspected, is key. When do we open our schools now? What are we supposed to do for our children to go back to school? What are we going to do for us to go back to a normal life? It may not be normal. It will be normal in the current situation. But I think as a country, we are not doing what we're supposed to do. We need to test these people because some people might be enjoying, because when they go there announcing this they have allowances which they're being paid. I've been told they're getting a lot of allowance per day in Afya. So they are not keen on taking steps that are going to ensure that we go back to a way of doing things, not normally, but at least we reopen our country.
Right.
We have children going back to school, universities opening, colleges. We can even start by saying that let us have every school-going child tested. And it becomes the responsibility of the parent to ensure that your child is tested. So once you are tested and the school reopens, they can give parents like 1 month. And then the country should go out there and ensure that we have laboratories all over the country where parents can easily move in and test their children, and they have a certificate, and they can go back to school. The same applies to our teachers, because I don't think as a country we are ready to stay another three months without going back to doing business. We are looking out the country. We already have a fragile economy, and the more we continue staying out like this, the more we're spoiling our economy. I don't think the country has responded in the manner that it's supposed to be. For example, the president said, let frontline health workers, let us have a welfare package for frontline health workers. The president never said, let us have a package for health workers. The president knew what he meant when he said frontline health workers. The first step that should have happened is to bring stakeholders together and agree who are these frontline health workers. Then we can say, okay, the president has said frontline health workers, but we cannot leave other health workers out. So we begin by first, how do you assess to know the level of risk? For example, somebody was on TV and I was so surprised, a very senior person, a colleague of mine, a medical doctor, and he was saying that you cannot use the number of contact hours that somebody is exposed to a risk to gauge the level of risk. I laughed off, because there are 10 principles that we use when you're assessing risk.
And we'll be coming back to that. Let me also hear what he has to say in regard to the country's preparedness. He's saying we have not done enough. The Minister of Health officials have been on record saying that we have the capacity, but we don't have the pharyngeal swabs, the nasopharyngeal swabs that are used for testing. This is the main issue. Do you think we have responded well as a nation?
Purity, thank you again for this time. I look at it like we have a mixed reaction on that question, and I want to say there is a part we have tried and the other side that we have failed. And I want to say that like what we are looking the country running to actually do limited movement, or rather what we can call even a lockdown. I think we are just running after the disease. We are not tackling the disease, what is supposed to happen. We hear certain case, now we run there. We hear certain case, we run there. Like for instance, what my brother has highlighted, the issues of testing. The government has continually telling Kenyans that they have the capacity of testing 30,000. We still do less than 1,000. This is not what, if you tell people at least 30,000, then you should be able to do at least 50% of that. Now, since they say that, it's more than 4 weeks. And they have never moved to an inch to ensure that they are demonstrating to Kenyans that they are able to do that. This is even despite the Jack Ma contribution to this country, where he assisted this country to actually continue growing the capacity to test. They also said they were to test in mass the healthcare workers. This has never happened. It has never happened, and as it is only almost around 3%. If it has grown, maybe because of those who are working there to be tested, it should be less than 7% of the healthcare workers. We are not even doing, we do not have the assessment, health workers risk assessment to ensure that you are able even to track those who you can maybe look at and test. And I want to say that, one, when you're responding to such a pandemic where we are, we need to be moving with the pace. The issues of training of health workers, we're still crying about it. The health workers have never been trained. We are still talking about training. This is since March, and this is now I think the third month. That is a shame. 2, we're still talking about PPEs, recommended PPEs. Imagine you go to facilities, health workers, they don't have PPEs to protect themselves. Because if you don't protect the healthcare workers, you cannot protect the community, the people who are seeking services in that facility, and similarly, you can't protect their family. So they will be a source of spreading the disease.
All right.
So, and the other thing I need to mention is that once you do those 2, as we rely on the media to inform the country and the Kenyan, the public education must be able to be physical and must be seen to be happening. And that's why you see a lot of Kenya resisting. When you militarize the process of testing, the way you pick people once I've been tested positive, the way you pick my wife, until the relative says, I cannot. And I want to say this. My wife knows I see patient, and she told me, if you test positive, don't ever say you're married to me. Because of the process and what they are seeing on TV. We must be able to tell people and explain to them what they are doing rather than actually criminalizing the whole process. This is actually against the WHO recommendation, and it has actually advised against this. When even you do the curfew thing, it must be in the line that you are supporting these people to adhere to the rules, not to criminalize. Because we have had people being arrested, put in the quarantine center, and then after 14 days, released home without a test.
All right, and we'll be getting to those challenges, Gibore. Once again, you mentioned, Panyako, about reopening the economy. The World Health Organization has warned African nations, actually every nation, against lifting the restrictions. They're saying that we first have to focus on the testing of the people before we open the economy. But do you have an idea on how this can happen?
If I was a mathematician, I will tell you to test 48 million Kenyans, because everybody must be tested. It's not an issue of a few people. And we are doing an average of 1,000 per day. How many years are those going to be? How many years? I'm not a mathematician. 48 million divided by 1,000.
No country has been able to test
maybe 400 years.
The entire population.
You need 400 years or 40 years. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician, but I'm going to see very quick mathematics. What I'm saying is this. At the rate at which you're moving in terms of testing, because when you test is when you protect the people who's infected and those who are around him, around that person. But if we look at the World Health Organization saying that people should not open up their economies, they're not being sincere. Because Africa is, most of us are still underdeveloping countries. We are not even developing countries. So we will kill our economy. This disease is going to be endemic, you see. When it becomes endemic, it's not going to go away. It will be like malaria. So what we need is to quickly move forward, do research, Kemri wake up and do your work, find a way that we can reopen back our country and protect those who are not infected from being infected. And you can only do this if you spear up the issue of testing. Let people be tested. Let it be like something, when you are walking around, you can see it's being tested here and you go and you are tested. Then the testing itself has a problem. The way you saw those people in Old Town in Mombasa complaining, you know, you're getting people there, and I also blame the media to some extent. You will see that thing is being put in someone's nose, the mouth, and pharyngeal. You can see how the patient's reacting. You think the others will come. I think the testing, those who are responsible, the laparatory people, you must make sure there is privacy to the person you are testing. Don't expose them, because you are making other people fear. Even myself, I'm fearing. If I get this thing, you mean these people are going to do this. You know, I'm a health worker, but I don't like the way it's being done. Let it be some level of privacy so that we encourage other people to do it. But the more you continue doing it and showing it on TV, the more you're chasing away people, because it looks very horrible. It looks very not humanly. But this country, I think, we must take bold steps. Bold steps. Our economy has gone down. Look around. Business are closed. No one is doing anything. For how long is it going to continue like this? How many people are going to be out there in the field dependent if we close this economy for another 6 months from today? We are going to have 93% of Kenyans dependent. Who will feed them? We must bite the bullet. Kenyans must understand and accept that it is not business as usual, but we must go back to business. Mm-hmm. We go back to business, but not as usual. We must, for example, if in my office maybe I have 15 employees, We can agree, let us work 7 days a week. And then we have maybe the first lot will work the first 3 days of the week, and the 4 days, the other one 2, 3 weeks. Or let us lengthen the period of working. Maybe so that you want to have the work so that you don't have a lot of crowding in the office. You say, okay, we are 16, we cut you 8, because like in my office, there are others working in the field. But those who are in the office, you cut into half. We can start coming to work from 6 in the morning. By 11 or 12, I've released the first batch, comes in at 12, and by 6 we're going back home. We cannot continue. Kwanza, these things of closing, look, pubs have closed everywhere in this country. How many people work in those pubs? How many people? The proprietors of those pubs, how are they feeling? All of them, everywhere is closed at night, and yet we are saying all is fine. We must open our country, and we must open it with care. Mm-hmm. We must say, for you, like the way they are doing with the hotels, open, you must have a certificate, this distance of the tables, so on and so on. It must boil back to a responsibility of the people. Like I like the long distance truck drivers in Mombasa. Where I saw them taking responsibility, and they were saying, yes, we accept to be tested. But what about those people? What about the people who are carrying us? What about Makanga of the matatus? What about the drivers? So they were saying, yes, we want to be tested, but let everyone be tested. I think we must move with speed and ensure that we test a substantive number of Kenyans that can easily tell us, if this is what we have tested, what is most likely those who are still at home, who have not been tested and are infected. I am not supporting the issue of continuing to close this country.
Okay, and we want to really come back and talk about the frontline health workers, because that's what our discussion is. But Kibore, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us whether you agree with what Panyako is saying, because the head of state, even nations are afraid of opening the economy because there's not much that is known about this virus. We don't even have a vaccine. And the reason or the explanation the ministry is giving, or the National Response Emergency Committee, on why we have to ban any meetings that involve large gatherings, is because we are trying to maintain this social distancing. And now, yesterday, we had an extension of the cessation of movement in at least 5 counties for another 21 days, and also the dusk to dawn curfew. Businesses are closed. What's your opinion?
Thank you very much, Purity. I need to reiterate on the issues of opening up the country, and I think it is in record that we, as more specifically the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, we called for actually cessation of movement immediately when the president brought the curfew issue. We said people should not be able to move, because you do a curfew at night, daytime people are moving across. So we said this one should not have happened immediately, because it should have actually stopped the movement of people who are moving around and spreading the disease. Because you can't tell people you don't move at night, then they move at daytime. And I need to say that we as a country, we chose actually to go by the advice of the WHO. And it should not be selective. The WHO has been on board, and I want to believe they have been seeing the country representative WHO, Dr. Rodiega, has been there persistently informing the country on what to take and where to go. So I want to believe that we still have to trust them. On the issues of economy and where we are, indeed, we are in an extraordinary time. Things cannot be the same, both economically and also our health. So for me, I still need to feel that we don't have to rush to be there, because we know what will happen. If we have a majority of the Kenyan infected, we know what will happen to this country, and we are vulnerable. So because we are vulnerable, the strict measure we can be able to take is what will be able to guide our tomorrow, is what will be able to guide when do we open up our country. And yes, we will be able to struggle, and as you have seen, many people are not able to cope with it because they're lacking even something to eat. But I think that we need to deliberately focus on this, because you can see this is a country governed by politicians. They already shifted from the issues of the coronavirus. They are doing business which matters to them. And that is where we fail, because the resources will be redirected somewhere else. And I want to say the health sector has been forgotten for so long. The president has given the big four agenda, where health is one of it.
I think this is the time we will have actually maximized to ensure that the health sector is dealt with for once and for all. Then he forget and now move to the other three. If we did this during this time, including we saw 40 billion, including the other money that they are actually also borrowing, if they are directed to the health sector as they intend to, because I have seen their budget, there is actually around less than 30% directly to the health, and the other money is actually redirected to other places. So we want to say that let the president reconsider his position. If he wants a legacy, he has been given a priority, I think a chance to ensure that he actually prioritizes the issues of health and ensure that he's moving this country to the right direction. Don't move to the politics.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's now talk about the healthcare workers. They are the front line right now in the fight against COVID-19. And I saw, if I'm not wrong, in part of your demands, you wanted a double allowance on the transport. Probably you can tell us what has changed since this pandemic.
The truth is that
for the healthcare providers in terms of the job
satisfaction.
Yes.
The truth is that we have not seen much that has changed. We still have health workers who have not earned every salary as we're talking now. So we cannot talk of even being able to have personal protective equipment right at the lower levels of healthcare systems when some of the workers have not earned salary. It is becoming a serious problem in Kenya. Failure to pay salary on time by the county governments. And that's why we're saying one of the problems that should be resolved is to have the Health Service Commission to take care of the health workers of this country. Salaries, education, everything, promotion, discipline, so that we move away from the issue of us fighting for butter and bread in terms of we have not earned my salary, to now moving to the step where we are now going to be part and parcel of resolving the problems in the health sector in this country. But at the moment, we're still fighting for non-paid salaries. We went and we were asking many things when we issued, before we issued a strike notice. Among those things was about the high cost of transport in Kenya, because most of public servants in Kenya, as well as health workers, they use public means. And that public means, the measure that has been put in place by the government, we support but also they come in hand with certain cost implication. Now, when you have to use 2 seats and you are 1 passenger, definitely common sense tells you the owner of the matatu will have to double the price, because if you don't do that, you will not be able to run that matatu. So that has not been done. We were asking that all health workers should have been tested right from when we realized that this disease has now come in Kenya. It has now become a community infection. But we were told it was going to begin and has begun. Personal protective equipment has been a very serious issue in this country. We have been told a lot of money has been mobilized, a lot of resources, but we are not seeing them on the ground. Where are they going? You go to a health worker and you are told that you are supplied with a mask when you are going to duty at 5 in the evening, and you are supposed to take with one mask up to the following day around 8:30. That gives you about 18 hours, 16 hours when a health worker is supposed to stay with one mask, while the required standard is not more than 5 hours. Mm-hmm. So we have those problems, and we have another problem in the biggest referral hospital in Kenya, Kenyatta National Hospital. In the medical ward, we have patients who are discovered to have COVID-19 when they had already been admitted. One of them died. What they did was to send doctors to isolation, but the nurses and other health workers, support staff were left. They have now brought other doctors to come and take care of these patients that the doctors have been put in quarantine. What will happen about these patients again? These doctors have been brought. So we want a hospital like Kenyatta National Hospital to lead by example. When there is something like that, treat all health workers as if they are equal people. Is it true that they are thinking that nurses are supposed to die? Clinical officers, sweepers are supposed to die and you only take care of one person? This kind of injustice streams right from Afya House down to the health facilities. You can see the discrimination in Kenyatta. My officials are calling me day and night. Today I have received an official who's telling me he's working in an ICU, but he has come on duty. He has found that he has been allocated in an ICU that is specifically identified to manage COVID-19 patients. This is a person who has not been trained. He doesn't know how to go and take care of himself. And that's why we are saying that frontline health workers, to me, meant those health workers who are directly involved in managing these patients. Then those who are in the screening area, like casualty departments, outpatient if they are working, and then the isolation itself, the treatment area. Those were the frontline health workers. The government ought to have given them special training and, of course, gave them special terms of employment, terms of engagement between this period, so that these fellows don't go home. They stay in a place like a hotel. Then after you have worked for 14 days, because WHO standard requires that when you are exposed to a risk for 14 days, you are supposed to be given a break. You are tested. If you are okay, you are given a break. If no problem, you go back to stay with your family. After another 14 days, you come back.
All right.
That's not happening in Kenya.
Okay, and before we get to the issues, the exact issues during this pandemic, Sabundi Peter is telling me, kindly ask Seth Panyako, what is the status of the 2017 CBA?
The CPA is a 2017 CPA. You know, it is one of the things that we had almost completed. We were left with 3 issues. One of them was risk allowance, which you have heard us talk about the level of risk. You cannot pay a nurse 3,850, and you are paying somebody who's 4th line. You know, we have front line, first front line, second front line, third front line, and 4th line front line. You are giving a 4th line front line 20,000, and you're giving a nurse 3,800. You're giving a clinic officer 3,000 shillings without any justification. So we had not agreed on the risk allowance, but the way we were negotiating, there was almost everyone agrees that nurses should get higher risk allowance, because there was a document that was developed when Professor Nyong'o was the Minister of Health, and nurses were rated as high risk. There's risk, but we are rated as high risk. And the proposal then was that nurses ought to have been given 20,000 shillings as risk allowance. It was never implemented. And then number 2, the issue that we have not also tackled in the CPA was the issue of grading structure. You realize that when SRC came up with the grading structure, it said that it classified nurses into section 1, unskilled, another one semi-skilled. And we opposed that, and everybody agreed with us in 2 levels of government that nurses are very highly skilled people. Even when you look at Black Law Dictionary, you look at Oxford Dictionary, how they define a person who is skilled, what is required of you to be called a skilled person. You cannot rate a nurse as a skilled person. Unskilled, when you go to a dispensary, you find a certificate nurse is the doctor, is the nurse, is the pharmacist, is the lab person, because at dispensary level, you hardly find a pharmacist. You will hardly find a pharmacist. You will not even get a lab. And you get 2 people actually, a watchman and a nurse. So, and you call these people same-skilled. It is extremely wrong and unacceptable. The last thing that we looked into was the issue of leave allowance. If you tell a nurse that leave allowance is 4,000, how do you expect me to go home with 4,000 shillings? So we want at least a basic salary, not 1 month's salary to be given to health workers and nurses as a leave allowance. It's already happening in Moi Referral. We negotiated a very good CPA in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, and all workers are given 1 month's salary for leave allowance. And so those are the 3 items that is holding our negotiation. Then we have SRC grading public servants under partisan grading structure. We have the Public Service Commission, the Ministry of Public Service, which has brought up another grading system, which is not like partisan grade. There's a lot of confusion between arms of government responsible for management of human resource. Public Service Commission is doing something different. Public Service Ministry for Public Service and Ministry for Public Service is doing something different. SRC is doing something different. State corporations are doing something different. The reason why SRC came up with the partisan grading structure was to ensure that every public servant in Kenya is paid equally. That's where equity comes in, because if I'm a nurse and I'm being employed, for example, at Job Group C1 at the first entry point, that should happen everywhere in government institutions. But everything, when they did that partisan grading, they saw, oh, if this thing we implemented the way it's supposed to be, nurses will get a good salary. So they revert again to the old one.
Okay.
So that way, that's where we are. The problem we have, the ministry is telling us we need to use the grading structure from the public service, Ministry of Public Service. And as we are saying, no, we are going to use the grading structure of Peterson, because that is what has been recommended and advised by SRC. That's where we are.
All right. Gibori, there has been a global shortage of the personal protective equipment. Of course, other nations are talking about it, and Kenyan health professionals are also talking about it. But do we have unique challenges when you compare other nations, health workers from other countries, that they are enjoying some privileges during this fight that Kenyan health professionals are not?
Thank you for bringing that issue up, and we need to say yes, of course. You asked yourself what has changed, and indeed for me I say many things changed,
because like what we are talking about, the PPEs is something that health workers are not using always. So it is something new, and that's why we normally insist on training. Because on the infection prevention control, you must be able to tell people that you'll be using 1, 2, 3, and when you are using this is how you put it on. That is what we call the on and off. You put it on, and then when you are taking it off, because the majority of the health workers who are working in the isolation center and directly to the patient who are infected, that's how they get infected. And the training must be specific to that, where assimilation is happening. Now the government has adopted the system of training healthcare workers online, which might not be sufficient, and it cannot instill confidence in the healthcare workers who are actually seeing this patient. So that's why we are saying the government must prioritize. And of course I need to challenge you. Look at their budget that they presented even to Parliament. It did not have even as an allocation for the training of healthcare workers. When you ask, the Ministry of Health have been saying it want to manage the COVID-19 centrally. When you ask about training, a majority of the healthcare workers are under the counties. They tell you you are under the counties, but they want you still to do the same services. They want you to do the same services with the little, or rather with the same people who are a few who are working with the national government. So that's where we divert, and we want to say that that must be done rightly. On the issues of the PPEs, the government has already said and actually enrolled a number of companies that are actually geared toward assisting to grow the capacity to supply the PPEs, which they promise within 2 to 3 weeks, everyone will be, and everywhere there will be enough, which has not happened. And that is what agitated the healthcare workers, because that is the priority. If you cannot prioritize the healthcare workers, we continue announcing on the numbers and those who have been recovered, and you forget about the healthcare workers, then you forget the fundamental resources to fight this pandemic. Mm-hmm. That must happen. And we are saying, when you talk about that, the healthcare workers are not enough. They are very few. We are talking about, if we had enough, we'll be working in shift, what we call cohort, when you are managing the pandemic. You don't have everyone working the same time. So that if one of them tests positive, then the people who are along that cohort, then they will be taken for quarantine, and the services will continue to be running with the other group. This has not happened in our country, and the government has not adopted a structure on how to ensure that they are rolling this one out. And when I talk about this, it is painful because, one, when you saw what happened in Ngara, when one of our officers tested positive, the facility had to close down. What are you telling the community? That this is a facility spreading the COVID-19? And the people now shy away from coming to the hospital? That is a bad management, and they need to change. And when we talk about there are few, is that the government also resolved to employ more healthcare workers. They said within 1 week. We are more than actually 6 weeks. They have not employed these healthcare workers. Where did the urgency change? Where did the importance of having these people working change? Then we have people seated there, and indeed I need to mention that the ministry, during this COVID-19, they came up with a task force on a HR committee on COVID-19. They were to assist, ensure that the ministry were able to run along smoothly without any hitches. That has not happened, and those people still continue drawing some actually package to themselves, what we can call maybe allowances.
All right.
And let me finish about that issue, because they are employing these healthcare workers, also paying them minimal, without a clear structure, because we're saying all the healthcare workers, they have a scheme of service which inform the entry point and how you grow according to the services you offer as years come. But they give you very low, including what they call the interns, forcing people to redo their interns despite they have gone through the interns. So they force them to pay them 15,000. They use them to offer the same services as those who are on PNP. So they have actually come up with what we call irregular contract against the provision of the Employment Act, Section 5.5, which provided that actually if you have to get someone on employment on a contract, you must be able to levelize, or rather pay them the same, because they are offering the services in the same environment the same way. and they have the same qualification.
All
So
right.
the government has actually muted that, which we feel that it is something that they need to address and address it as a matter of urgency.
All right. So, Seth, do you have more challenges to highlight? Because I want to ask you on how best should the frontline health workers be protected in the country?
Purity, you know, what my brother has said, I want to pick up. You asked what other people are doing outside that Kenya is not doing. Number one, Kenya is the only country in the world that will hire a nurse with a diploma and pay 20,000, and hire another nurse with a diploma and pay above 75,000. They are doing the same job, working in the same hospital, delivering the same services. I have seen Joho. Joho is making fun of health sector. I've seen him advertising to employ diploma nurses and clinic officers 10,000 shillings. That does not happen anywhere in the world. If there's an insult to healthcare system, it is coming out after this devolution. Health workers are being employed and put on dubious conditions. The government is not serious. Look at a country like Ethiopia. It went ahead and took a medical cover, life medical cover for all health workers, so that if you happen to die as you continue to deliver your duty, your mandate as a professional, your family will not suffer when you go. Somebody will tell you, oh, you have Work Injury Benefit Act, but that's not enough. When you look at 24 counties, which the ministry was saying they have given them comprehensive NHIF cover, that's a joke, because the NHIF cover, they deducted money from our payslip when I was still working. They took 4,000 shillings from my payslip, and they said they're going to have what they call civil servants comprehensive medical scheme. They took it away. When you look at the US, it gave $2,000 per month to her frontline health workers. The other nurses are being given 1,000 shillings. You see, when you look at those countries, look at Ghana. Ghana gave a tax haven for all her health workers. Health workers are not paying taxes in Ghana. They have also increased their salary, basic salary, by double. This is a country where you see people are reasoning. But here in this country, when the president says go and make COVID-19 package welfare for frontline health workers, and some doctors sit in Afia House and they say doctors 20,000, the rest 15 and 10,000 shillings without any justification. And that is what has been happening. So what we are saying is that health sector in Kenya, the government of Kenya does not appreciate health workers. I see them saying on TV, we appreciate you. How do you appreciate me when you are paying me 15,000 shillings? They say SRC. I think there is something called SRC in this country that if I had powers, I'll demolish that thing. When we ask for salary, it tells us it will bring inequality, disparity in employment. We want equality. Where is SRC to talk about the plight of these health workers who have been hired for 10,000 shillings? And SRC, those fellows who are there, those commissioners, they know how to read and write. They read newspapers every day. They are seeing this advertisement. Why are they not advising those county governments not to hire health workers in this kind of terms? Let me tell you, for nurses, I can tell them the future is here. We are very soon, the next 5 to 10 years, there will be no nurse to play around here. We are putting mechanisms in place to ensure that our nurses are properly prepared to work anywhere in the world once they complete their school. So that when they finish, we take them to South Africa, we take them to USA, Europe, Australia.
That's not the best.
And there will be no nurse to be played around in this country. I'm telling you, I'm already speaking with the nurses in Europe. We had a Skype yesterday, and what we are saying is that we want to use a foundation that has been formed by our union to champion the interest of nurses, and also our fellows who are outside there. They are bringing money and giving to their relatives. Their relatives are eating. So we want to start investing for them. We take you out. When you bring money, we invest for you. Very soon, there will be no nurse to be employed for 10,000 shillings in this country.
Right.
But on this one, I don't agree with you.
Okay. We are winding up. Time is not on our side.
Yes.
Gibori, shortly, how best should the frontline health workers be protected?
Thank you. Maybe before I respond on that, let me respond on one very grievous issue that we highlighted on our strike notice. Is about lack of promotion for healthcare workers, where we find that there are people who are employed for more than 15 years.
Highlight the issues on your strike notice quickly.
15 years, they have never been promoted. Still, you continue seeing that person every morning coming to work and going away. And there are people who have been employed They come, and of course, you find that they are being promoted and leaving you the same place. And I want to highlight a number of these counties, including Mandera, where a person is employed today, the next day they are very high job group because they are native, and the people from the lower side are never promoted. And it is happening across the country, and a majority of the healthcare workers are feeling so much disadvantaged. There are people who you employed in 2013. When you go to Lamu, the same people have been promoted to job group L, but those who are in Nairobi are still doing their job group H, the entry job group. And that is why the healthcare workers are feeling so much agitated, unsupported, and unappreciated. If this one is not going to happen all the time, and of course we have seen since the devolution that the healthcare workers have been agitating for a number of these issues, but it's not changing. But I want to say that that strength has not gone away. We will still push that right thing must be done. And of course, we have clear guideline on this by the Public Service Commission, HR manual, which guide all the counties and all the employers on what they are supposed to be doing. Now, how do you protect the healthcare workers?
We have less than a minute.
Yes. How do you protect them? Educate them sufficiently and what they are supposed to be doing to protect themselves, protect their family, and protect the people they are seeing by using the PPEs, rightful recommended PPEs, because they are clearly indicated in every facility. If you are in a health center, where you are in a high-risk region, what you are supposed to be using. And for those who are working in quarantine and isolation centers, what you are supposed to be doing. So all those people must be able to be educated and be provided by the requisite recommended PPEs for them to be able to protect themselves.
All right.
And lastly, is that these people must be able, like those who are in isolation center, must be given a place to stay when they are serving in those places so that they don't come from home, risking their family, and also ensuring that they are not able to infect their people at home.
All right. So they want to give you 30 seconds.
Yes.
If you have an additional points in regard to protecting frontline health workers during this time.
Fortunately, nurses don't have a very serious issue in terms of training. Every nurse is trained on how to don and doff personal protective equipment. What we need as nurses is provide us with personal protective equipment. Before you even think of giving us COVID-19 package, ensure that every nurse gets his or her salary on time. That one is not too much to ask from the government. The COVID-19 package must be revised so that we feel we are all appreciated. But as far as I'm concerned, I want to thank the nurses of this country and the health workers in general. Despite the fact that we are working in very hardship conditions, we have put in all that we can put in. As much as we lament and say things must be improved, we continue to risk our lives. You continue to work and protect this nation. I clap for you the way others are doing. I give you mine. Thank you. Continue like that. As your leader, I'll continue fighting for your rights relentlessly.
Okay. Seth Panyako, Secretary General, Kenya National Union of Nurses. George Gibore, Secretary General, Kenya Union of Clinical Officers. Thank you so much for your time. And we also clap for you for representing the nurses. And let me finish with this tweet. Dr. Godfrey, you're calling yourself at Ndongo Jr. on Twitter, sending a very emotional message saying, last night at midnight, my team and I sacrificing our sleep to attend to a distress call. Indeed, we are celebrating you tonight and every single day as the world continues to battle this virus. Now, I want to leave you with two things. One, weather forecast. And number two, President's message during this time. Of course, fasting, celebrating the frontline healthcare workers on the tremendous job that they are doing to protect these communities and the country. And number two, the call to just adhere to the WHO recommendations on washing your hands, staying at home, social gatherings, wearing on that mask, and so forth. Why don't you listen to the president himself? Thank you so much. That's coming up shortly. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Your feedback time is not on our side, but I promise I'll sample you. I'll be having a look at them off air, and I'll also see you again next week on Sunday, same place, same time, of course, with a different discussion and different guests. I'm Purity Museo. Baron Abuli has been our sign language interpreter tonight. Good night. God bless.